Okay, and we're live. Thank you for joining us. This is Fernaz Parker with the Daily Box, and we're having a hangout this morning with MJ Khan, online media manager for Sasol. And MJ was one of the first people to start tweeting and talking about the Chikilamba situation that went viral last week in South Africa. Now, for those of you who don't know about Chikilamba, we have a story on our site. Basically, a young man kidnapped or convinced someone else to get into his car, and then there was a very physically violent and verbally violent assault, in a sense, on this man that was videotaped on a cell phone camera and was then subsequently posted to the internet. MJ, can you tell us a little bit more about what happened and why people started sharing this video so quickly? It's actually had so many views and so much hype around it that it entered the mainstream media on the weekend. You know, the Sunday Times, the Witness, the Independent, actually all had articles about this issue. Tell us a bit more about what happened.
Okay, so without, well, just by paraphrasing the story really quickly, and are you getting me loud and clear on that side? Just wave if you are.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, so we won't divulge into the actual incident itself because, I mean, that's open to interpretation based on the story of the chap who was kidnapped, threatened, harassed in the car, etc. And that's sort of a story on its own. What fascinates me is how this actual incident of the viral video sort of expanded and was shared across social media platforms. And I think that's part of the deeper story and the greater story in terms of how content, how any sort of piece of content is disseminated online. So without going into the actual details of the event itself, let's sort of unpack why it's been such a massive viral hit. I think we often use the word viral here. We often use the word viral to describe any piece of sort of content that's entertaining or funny, and in a way that's problematic because if you look at the idea of what makes something viral, it's when the initial author or publisher has no control of it whatsoever. So it's spread to the point where it can't be retracted, it can't be contained, and that's what makes something viral. And what sort of led to the popularity of this video, I think, is threefold. Number one, if you look at sort of the proliferation of connected devices we have these days, almost every single person in a certain LSM bracket has a device that can connect to the internet. We know that 11 million South Africans have Facebook accounts. That's 1 in 5. So a huge number of people have cell phones that have the ability to connect online. So you've got this layer of sort of connectedness, right? This mobile layer. The second aspect is that we are inherently social as human beings, and we love to share, we love to create. So our virtual profiles, our online personas, all of that is populated by the content we share. So if you look at your Facebook account, for example, it's often a skeleton and repopulated. So we're in this Web 2.0 era where we actually populate all the content that's out there. We define ourselves online with whatever we share and whatever we don't. And the last thing is these instant messaging services like WhatsApp have made it so easy to share. It's just one-click sending. So previously, where it was quite laborious to share a story with someone or to transfer some information, these days we don't even think about it. It's just, okay, here's something funny, we're fickle, let's share it and let's move on. So I think that has all sort of contributed to this video being such an enormous hit.
I think the video was spread around a lot on WhatsApp, and we don't often, you know, when we think of social Twitter and we think of Facebook, but in South Africa, many people who watched this video got a link on WhatsApp or video. They got the video itself.
In fact, WhatsApp is still the platform where it's most widely circulated, purely because, again, once you've downloaded the video to send it to someone else, all you have to do is forward. And it's a very easy process, you know, and there's no additional consumption of data or anything like that from the individual sharing it. So it makes it really lucrative and easy. And you're also going to see the video being spread a lot on BBM. So while we have WhatsApp, there's BBM, and then perhaps to a smaller extent, people who do use WeChat for anything apart from Garrett Cliff might be using that as well.
So you mentioned that the thing about a video going viral, or any information going viral, is that once the initial author puts it out there, they don't have control over where it goes or how it's used. Now, we don't know a lot of the details about what actually happened in the situation, but it's clear that the video was shot from inside the car. So someone who was involved took the video. Now, given that the police are now looking for some of the people involved, that's quite a dangerous thing. I mean, this is a case of, I think people have been using the words kidnap and assault. Why would you put a video like that out there?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. So if you take the first assumption, it's that the video itself was leaked, and it was made for private consumption, and it just happened to go out by very nature of it being leaked. It wasn't intended for a wider audience. And I mean, as we know, history tells us that chances are if you're trying to hide something, it'll still find its way out, especially if that content is engaging or sort of notable or remarkable. So that's the first avenue, that perhaps it was leaked. The other sort of position around this is that a video like this will allow the members of the kidnapping group, or I like to call them the Bush administration, because they kept on saying put him in the bush. I'd like to think that it could have been released to sort of enhance status or notoriety. But again, almost to a point where it backlashed, where the police are now investigating it quite heavily. And that's also quite interesting in that, and again, this is sort of drawing on my own experience with sort of growing up in Durban and being exposed to a lot of people who like to be called cardboard gangsters and have this mafia sort of status, where previously people used to be sort of fearful of these characters, and now, as you can see by all the memes and caricatures, it's almost a joke. Mm-hmm. So it might have backlashed. If notoriety was the objective, I think that probably failed quite deeply.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why this video went viral. It tells us something about society, and maybe you can expand on that, because it's very clear that the people in this video are trying to be tough guys, but the way that it's been received online has been the complete opposite of that. They're not being seen as and talked about as though they're really tough and people to be feared. They just have become a big joke now.
Definitely, it's not that sort of romanticized idea of the mafia or mobsters or anything like that. So if you look at all that 1930s and 40s literature, about people who used to run cities and things like that, it's nothing like that. I think it harkens back to that, and they like to imagine themselves as these individuals, but you very jaded if you live in South Africa. I mean, we don't take that seriously because we live with murder on a daily basis. We live with rape and violent crime like that. That's sort of committed against so many people that if someone threatens you and says that they run the mafia in Pretoria and Cape Town, you sort of chuckle about that. Especially when it's largely a bunch of youngsters sort of fighting over the affections of a third party.
What do you think it was about this video that made it so compulsive for people? Why were people spreading it around and handing it out all the time?
Well, I think there's a few factors to it. The first one is that it does definitely have a shock factor to it, and I wouldn't want to downplay the violence of it as well. I mean, the person who was kidnapped, they did point a gun at his face. They assaulted him by hitting him a few times, and that still has a relatively high shock factor. So a few years ago, we used to have happy slaps and those sorts of viral videos, and it's subsided for a bit, but it's come back now in a very real way. It was quite frightening. I think that was one element. On the other hand, a lot of people laughed at just the language and the grammar and the sort of the discourse and the vernacular of the speakers as well, almost to the point where, especially for what I like to call Muslim Twitter, it hit home in a way. It was, okay, I kind of know people like this, but at the same time, you also shake your head at it. So that was the other factor. And lastly, it's just interesting because it had an almost sort of retro gangster feel to it that you sort of forget about until people remind you that there are individuals like this in the world. So I think the combination of that definitely did help it go viral.
Do you think that it sort of shed a spotlight on a certain subset of South African culture, and perhaps that's also why people have been passing it on so much? Or do you think this is something that's been largely restricted to Muslim Twitter, as you put it?
I would have, I get a notification. I would have sort of labeled it and discarded it as something fickle that Muslim Twitter would engage in, until I heard a news story in 702 this morning. So it eventually has transcended into the mainstream, and it's something bigger now. So a few days ago, I had friends asking me who is Chiki Lamba, and I'd have to sort of unpack it and what it means in a half embarrassing, half knowledgeable sort of way. And now that 702 is picking it up, now that you've got the legitimate mainstream news organizations covering it, it's become something bigger. It's transcended into something bigger. Will it have a lot of staying power? No, I don't think so, because we are fickle these days, and we sort of move on from story to story. But I definitely think we'll be talking about it for a while, at least for the next week.
So now, aside from the video itself, which was passed on through various networks, there was the meme aspect of it. So a meme is usually where an idea gets built on and bounced around a lot. And most people know about these from image macros. You know, these are images or pictures, stills that have captions or quotes put onto them, these image macros, and they get sent around because they're funny. So this one was heavily used as an image macro. There were quotes from the video and lots of jokes made around that. What about this video made it so so easy for people to make image macros of and just sort of build on the meme?
So I think what really contributed to it were the sentences, really. I mean, it was full of these hilarious quotable sentences that you could take and apply to common meme conventions, and it'll work just well. I mean, just having a sentence like, you know, I'm Chiki Lamba, in a way that's supposed to have some weight or gravity, and applying it to a silly picture, just sort of forwarded the myth or the caricature that we have of the character. In terms of the popular memes, most of the time, because memes by their very nature are sarcastic, are a bit cynical, or a bit more sort of undercurrent in the way we use them to subvert threats, and we use it to subvert context, it just allows it to be really ripe. So we've had lots of memes around put him in the bush, for example, you know, and you could take any piece of sort of cultural collateral, like any piece of pop culture collateral, and put him in the bush to it, and all of a sudden this juxtaposition gives you something to chuckle about. So that's been really popular. But then also the ability that we have right now to do a one-click publishing of memes. It's not a schlep anymore. You don't need to have Photoshop. You don't need to have an advanced knowledge of editing. You know, anyone with very basic browser capabilities can create a meme almost instantly and share that. So I think sort of those barriers dropping has also allowed these memes to be spread.
Now that it's sort of this incident is being reported on in the mainstream media, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, Shakil Lamba, he's a real person, as is Braza, the guy who got beaten up, and the girl at the center of the whole debacle. You know, at the center of this is someone whose affections are being fought over and families whose names are being used. Is this something that we should be spreading around there and reporting seriously? Originally, when we reported it, it was because everyone was talking about it, and it was a big joke that half of the people who were exposed to it didn't understand. Whereas now, it's become a news story. It's become a crime and courts issue. Should we keep perpetuating this, or do the people involved have the right to a degree of privacy?
That's an interesting one. I mean, the idea behind sort of public figures and private figures. And geez, it's such horrible timing because I see my system's about to restart for some reason. But I'm just going to tackle it quickly in 20 seconds, just so that we can get it out of the way. Yes, I think it's quite important that if these issues come to light, that there's some sort of resolution or some form of escalation that appears. Because of the videos, we found out about what's happening, and it was escalated to the authorities, and that's quite powerful. The idea that as civilians, yes, we can laugh at it, but at the same time, make enough of a noise that people are alerted. You know, so you look at the traditional ways that police sort of investigate issues like this. Here, you know, it's always after the fact with a lot of evidence. And this is really good because we've got the evidence. You can't deny that those guys are on the videos. So I'm hoping to look for more sort of incidents of this. Unfortunately, yes, there is collateral damage. There are casualties. And I think my PC is going to switch off now. Sorry.
Uh-oh. I think his PC switched off. So that brings our live Google Hangout with MJ Khan to an end. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you will do so again in future. So now it's Parker from the Data Box. Have a good day.